Welcome back to the Ace Talks podcast, where we talk about Ecuador and a little more. Today, as you can see, or as you can hear, or as you will hear, we're accompanied by our special guest, Mr. Luis of Ecuador. How are you doing, Luis?
Hey GM, hey people out there, or as I say, hello world. Well, first of all, thank you GM for inviting me to your podcast, and I hope I can provide some relevant information or whatever people are interested in, at least something interesting. Thank you again, and thank you for watching this. So, well, let's talk.
And quite the topic that we have to talk about today. And just a little disclaimer for everyone who's listening, this is not something that we're going to talk about a lot. Politics is something that I try to avoid, but today we will talk a lot about the election, the 2025 Ecuador presidential election. We're going to give our thoughts. We also have some talking points that I'd like us to cover, such as what is Correismo. We also have the most notable things during Correismo, good and bad. Some notable things that were done by our current government. We're going to talk a little bit about the debate that recently happened. And we're also going to talk about people's thoughts in general. And then, of course, we're going to give our thoughts and conclusions. So we're not going to get too much into it, but we will start off with the topic of Correismo because this is kind of the beginning in order to understand where we're at now and why this is such a big talking point. And hopefully, with this whole podcast and with this whole topic of the election, we won't have to talk about politics or at least elections for another 4 years. So let's hope that everything goes well with this presidential election. That's my introduction to this topic. So, Luis, Correismo, what can you tell me about it?
Correismo. If it was one word, I could even say it's a religion, like all fanatic ideologies, maybe. Rafael Correa was a former president, or is a former president of Ecuador. He ruled the country for 10 years between 2006 and 2016, and there is a before and after Correa, and all that happened there was called Correismo this season. People that follow Rafael Correa's ideals are the Correistas. And all of these leftist ideology in Ecuador that follows Rafael Correa's ideology is called Correismo. He's not the only leftist candidate because we also have the indigenous party Pachacutic. We have the Democratic Left. That's how they are called. The official name of the party is Izquierda Democrática. So there's not like only one left and not even only one right. Most people are actually here in Ecuador left wing. But Correismo is one thing apart. Even some leftists say Correismo is not a leftist movement. They are neoliberal, blah, blah, blah. But well, that's what Correismo basically is, an ideology that follows Rafael Correa's principles.
I think calling it a religion is very accurate when you think about how dedicated people are to the idea of Correísmo and to the leader himself, Rafael Correa. I'm pretty sure there are many people who would be willing to overlook the bad things because, of course, there's a reason why Rafael Correa is not in the country right now. But there are many people who would be willing to overlook a lot of the things that happened during Correísmo because of the good things that happened during Correísmo, which is what we're going to talk about right now.
Yep.
We're only going to make a slight mention and maybe just a tiny little extra mention of the things that happened. I actually have a list of a few things. I'm not going to mention all of them, but the ones that people tend to mention the most, the ones that get the most highlight. For example, we have the hydroelectric plants, which was something that tried to solidify Ecuador as a producer of, you know, energy, and so that they didn't have to rely on fossil fuels, and so that we could also export it as a country that could export that. There were the new and modernized highways, which I'd like to really quick just say I remember the before the highways, how people would say it was really hard to get from one city to another, and I experienced that a bit myself. And after, how it's just night and day. It completely changed the way that you would get from one city to another and cut down the time that it would take to reach one city to another. There's also the hospital and healthcare infrastructure, the construction of hospital and healthcare centers throughout the country. And of course, the last thing that I'll mention for now is the universities and educational infrastructure. Uh, if I remember correctly, they're called Escuelas de Milenio, the schools that were made during this time that were supposed to be like the new age schools that were constructed for students, for people. And there was even a university research, a new university that was constructed, which was Yachai Tech, which is apparently a research focused university. So these were some of the good things that were brought about through Correismo, through this time of having Rafael Correa as the president of Ecuador. Do you have anything to add? Anything you'd like to mention in regards to this, or are we good with that?
Well, to all viewers, yeah, this would be the general or the overview, like bullet points, which would make a 2 hour talk maybe to talk only about these things, the before and after Correa, all of that. And let us know in the comments if you would really like to hear about this in detail, because there's a lot to mention about this. But basically, yes, in the past, Ecuador had a lot of power outages. If you follow news of Ecuador, you know that last year we had a very strong season, very hard season with power outages. But that's something that hadn't happened since a lot of years ago. And this was thanks to Korea's policies, or maybe plans that were there and that Korea executed. We didn't have outages again, and we started exporting energy during some time thanks to the hydroelectrics. Then we relied too much on that, and well, when we had the strong drought last year, we had power outages. But before that, or during the, let's say, the last 10 years, we hadn't had any, thanks to what Korea did. So people appreciate that a lot in many places. The highways, well, Ecuador was or got connected in the regions way more thanks to Correa. We have the history of the train that connected Guayaquil, the Pacific Ocean main harbor of Ecuador, Guayaquil, to the capital, Quito. Then we had some dirt roads, and then we started having highways with the Pan American Highway, others. But during Korea, many of the dirt roads that existed were improved, and there were highways that were widened, like from maybe 2 lanes to 4 lanes, 6 lanes, especially in the north of the country. I live in Cuenca, and the situation here is not that good as in the north in terms of roads. But for people who, farmers especially, who had to take goods to the large cities, they saw the big difference. And hospital healthcare, there are many hospitals that were built during the Korea's years. And universities education, many scholarships were granted to students of Ecuador to study in the best universities around the world. That's like the good part, and you may think that I am pro Korea and that I love Korea and that I am part of this religion, right? But no, I mean, I want you to know, or well, we're talking about this with GM because we want you to understand why he has so much support, even though he's wanted for the Ecuadorian justice now, and his vice president or his former vice president is in prison here in Ecuador, and his party is considered like the most corrupt party in the Ecuadorian history. But after telling you all these good these good things that they made they made this is for you to understand that's why so many people support Correismo, because they saw a before and after. I, similar to GM, well, I'm uh, son to migrants. I mean, I was raised abroad, and my parents, who left Ecuador because there were no opportunities, they saw this change even more. I mean, they could notice it even more, because when they left, it was too bad. Then they saw there were lots of improvements, and the people here, especially in areas like Manabi, they saw many new works, tourism infrastructure, the highways, hospitals, many things. But one problem that happened is that there was a lot of corruption. There has been corruption for all the governments, but the Correa term had something special, and they had the barrel in during like 1 year or 2 years for over 100, the petroleum barrel, and that gave them a lot of money to make a lot of works, but also to steal more, to fill their pockets even more. Yeah, that's basically a summary of what has brought us here and why people still support Correa or the Correismo. Actually, the party of Correa, the current party, is RC, Revolución Ciudadana, or Citizens Revolution. But by coincidence, it also has the initial letters of Rafael Correa, RC, Revolución Ciudadana. So he's part, even like in the campaigns of the RC, of the Citizen Revolution, Correa's face is there. So yeah, there's a lot of this cult to the person. There's a lot much more to add, but basically, I mean, this is to summarize for you to understand how this guy that is wanted by the Ecuadorian justice, that has people declare corrupt, why they still have so many supporters, and why his party could have the next president in April.
There is the chance, especially considering how the first round went, and how right now, I remember during the debate, I won't get into too much of that, but basically how the percentages were skewed. Apparently, there was more support for the Correismo party than there was for the Noboa party. I'm not even sure what to call the Noboa party. Really, it's just Noboa party. But all right, so now that we have a little bit of an idea of Correismo in and of itself, let's look at the current government, the good and the bad, during Daniel Noboa's time as president, which was basically only a year and a half, which I would say kind of attributes into the bad. Not in the sense that like what he did was bad, but that his time hasn't been exactly ideal, but it hasn't been nothing. Because a lot of people have been arguing about that. But I'll get into the people's thoughts later on that. Hopefully, we remember to talk about that a little bit. But some of the good things, some of the bad things that have happened during Noboa's government. What would you say has been maybe the most noticeable good things that have happened during this government?
To those of you who have watched videos of me, I try to be as less biased as possible. Of course, I have my points of view, but I'll try to be as neutral as possible. Objective, that would be the word, sorry. We have the context of Correa, many words coming from governments that did very few things. Then we had Moreno, who was from Correa's party, but Moreno betrayed Correa and actually got the vice president arrested and opened all these corruption investigations against Correa and company. Then we had Lasso, who called to the cross death, and which is a mechanism in the constitution of Ecuador to finish the assembly, the Congress, but he also had to leave before time. And that's why Noboa run for elections where he only would be there for 18 months. And these 18 months will be finished in a while. And during these 18 months, to finish the former president Lasso's term, the main thing that some people say is, or many people say that support Noboa, is that he has fought corruption and criminality. If you want to see a good side, that would be what people say. He is hitting hard the correístas, the corrupts, and he's hitting hard the cartels, the narcos. But well, yeah, let's keep it there for the moment. That would be the good. With Korea government, Ecuador was the second safest country in South America. And then with Moreno, it started getting a little bit bad, but not so much. Then with Lasso, it was all like this, like the curve started in crime, started getting to the peaks in the region. So actually, the last year, Inside Crime, this organization showed that Ecuador is the most dangerous country in the region in terms of murders. And Noboa has been trying to attack that, or he has done stuff. So with Lasso, it was like this, and what I have seen is that with Noboa, it has not been like this, but it's like stabilized, like stopped increasing. It's not like it's improved and that it's super safe now, but Noboa's actions or his administration's actions have caused like the crime to stop skyrocketing as it was with Lasso. But we still have to reduce that. And so that's something that would be in the good part. And yeah, he's support the nation's prosecutor, the attorney general's office, and he's tried to he's attacked lot of corrupt people. The problem is that these people are only from one party, so you start thinking if they are really attacking corruption because they are corrupt, or if they are attacking corruption just because they are on the other side.
Kind of like a situation of convenience, you could say here.
It's politics.
When it comes to politics, it's really hard to say. Maybe we'll talk about that more in our personal opinion, but realistically, if you look at it from the outside, it does look to be that way. The good things, like you mentioned, the fighting against crime. One of the things that most people highlight is the militarization, like the deployment of the military on the streets, and I think that is physically one of the most noticeable things that I've been able to see during this government. In regards to a lot of other things that are mentioned, like he has mentioned that he's given scholarships, that he's helped out with education. There's even the proposal, which would go into what we're going to talk about later on, of giving scholarships for people to improve their English. I saw a recent post of that on Instagram, because English is something that's very important, as we see here in this conversation that we're having right now. It helps us reach people who might want to come to the country, and again, it improves tourism. In terms of negative things, crime, like you said, it hasn't skyrocketed, but it hasn't improved, which makes you believe, in a way, that the increase in EVA, which was supposed to combat this crime, was it actually to combat crime, or was it for something else? We'll get into our personal thoughts on that, but it's a negative in the sense that initially the proposal was that EVA wasn't going to be increased. It was increased. So if it
IVA
was
would be
increased,
the value added tax, the VAT. Yeah, I mean, to
Mhm.
English speakers.
Oh yeah, the
Uh,
VAT, the VAT. I keep going into EVA because I always see it as EVA, but yeah, the VAT. The point of it being increased was in order to improve the situation with crime. That was the proposal. Even though there was an initial proposal to not increase the EVA at all, the VAT. And now with the VAT increased and not seeing the reduction in crime, people doubt, are we actually using the VAT for what was proposed, or is it being poorly managed? So I would look at that as a negative that you can kind of see, because there should be more money in the country if there's an increased VAT. But there haven't been substantial improvements even with this increase in funds. What are your thoughts? Or what do you think in terms of negatives? What other negatives do you see?
Uh, well, there will be many more, of course, than the good things, in my opinion,
Go
because I
for it.
live here. I
Please let
mean,
us know.
I have a business. I try to run a business here, and that's why I feel all the negative part as well. But the thing is, to explain also in context to the people who listening or watching us, Noboa increased the value-added tax from 12% to 15% to improve security, like to be able to fund the armed forces and the police to combat the crime, the narcos, the gangs, everything. And of course, we were suffering a crisis and we accepted. Also, the president called to this consulta popular or referendum to ask if we wanted the armed forces, the military, to be on the streets because it was not allowed by the constitution. Only the police was able to be on the streets for this type of operations. But with the crisis, with what happened, the attack on the national TV station that was worldwide news, we voted yes, we want the armed forces on the streets, we want the government to take care of this in the best way possible, and we decided to pay more to for the value added tax, the IVA, and that made some stuff more expensive, but we wanted a solution. And when Noboa started all of this in January, this battle against the gangs, after the beginning of the year, he declared an internal armed conflict. And yeah, we saw the military, the deployment on the streets, the arrests being increased, and we felt safer in many areas because we would see the military, the soldiers on the streets. And homicides, they reduced by a lot. We were celebrating, or most of Ecuadorians were celebrating. Actually, Novoa's popularity was in December, January, like 80% when he was taking all of these actions. And he took the armed forces into the prisons and removed all the gangs because the prisons were stations, let's say, command centers for the gangs to call people like, hey, we know who you are, because they got database that was leaked by the companies, whatever, and they called, hey, we know your name, we know where you live, we know what your business is, you have to pay us this much, and you have to deposit into this account, and if you tell the police or anyone, you are gonna regret it. And I don't know if in your inner circle you have heard of the famous vaccines. They are extortions. Yeah. So we were listening to a lot of these. Here in Cuenca, not so much, but in the coastal region, a lot, or in big cities like Quito. In Cuenca, very, very little. And when they took the prisons, they found that they had hundreds of cell phones, let's say, in the whole nation, in the prisons. And then these calls stopped for a while, at least, but they stopped. The prisons, most of them are now taken. They had to reorganize. They were arresting so many people. Noboa has been very good at the propaganda, at showing what his administration has been doing, especially in security. Like if you go to the YouTube channel, Presidencia del Ecuador, you will see in the short section or in videos how they are promoting everything. Like we worked with the last one that they are putting on TV now is we made this big operation along with the German police, and we caught the leaders of Lobos or whatever. So yeah, there is action and you can see it. So on the one hand, that's good, but on the other hand, that was not sustained, or I don't know, because we paid more. We were happy at the beginning because we saw finally someone taking action, and then we are seeing again in the prisons, how do you say this, but these raids from the prisons between the prisoners, which were to be controlled 100%. And on the streets, people are denouncing again in some cities these extortions. And yeah, the drug trafficking, we had like hit records last year with drug seizures in Ecuador. And but that caused that the gangs that were making their big profit from drug narco trafficking looked into other types of actions like extortions again and kidnapping, especially in cities like Guayaquil. And they moved from the kidnapping of rich people to kidnapping of like everyone. Like you are getting out of a mall and you take a taxi, and this taxi is controlled by the gangs, and they would ask for $5,000, $6,000, which for a kidnapping may be little. For Ecuador is for the average Ecuadorian, it's a lot, but it's
Oof.
doable. Like, okay, I will call one cousin, one uncle, one brother, and 500 here, 500 there, getting a loan from the bank here and there, and they would make it. I mean, before the kidnappings were to like rich people to ask for 50,000, 100,000, maybe more. But now the gangs, because they have been more attacked, they are doing things that could add some cash into their organizations like this easily, because the police can't be everywhere. That's about criminality. That's not everywhere. Just for you to know, it's not like in Cuenca we have to be very afraid of this. At least we have not heard of this like a common thing. In cities like Guayaquil, you have to be very careful of where you go. It's not like you can't be there, but you have to be careful. I don't know you, GM, in Puerto Viejo or in Manta, what have you heard? But that's a thing I really wanted to add context, because Noboa started with this high popularity, taking action, and then we are seeing some stuff that's not so good. Again, increasing, all stable because it was like this. I mean, with Lasso, like this, right? With
Uh-huh.
Noboa at the beginning, like this. He took action, but then it's like this, and so it's not really improving in the overall view, if you. But what do you say from your perspective from from Manabí in the coastal region?
Well, looking at the coastal region and more so where I live, Puerto Viejo, and even the immediate area, Manta, which I do get some information from my good buddy Don Shader. Like, I don't know if you recently saw his videos, but he's even talked about that as well. You do see some cases N- here in Puerto Viejo. To be honest, I it's been a while since I've heard a specific case of something like that happening. The most recent ones that I heard were the ones that I mentioned, I think, in a previous video of the person who was a candidate for the mayor of Puerto Viejo who had gotten kidnapped. The same thing with someone who actually was a student of mine. And unfortunately, in that case, there's a lot of talks that it had nothing to do with the criminality, but something internal between them. But either
Okay.
way, the timing is unfortunate, and it gives that bad perspective that, like, oh, it's the situation that's happening now, and that could just be a sort of cover up. But I won't go too much into that. And closer to home, I do have someone who's a good friend of mine who actually, his special person, his couple, actually got extorted, so much so that they had to move out of the city that they were living in. So there are things that you hear that are happening over here in the coast, and more so in the coast. You hear it more because they do say that the coast is more dangerous. That's why even Guayaquil itself is a city that just when you go to Guayaquil, you have to be careful. But uh, something that everyone who's listening does have to keep in mind, like Lewis said, a city like Cuenca, yeah, you might have to be careful, but it's a lot safer than a city like my city, Puerto Viejo, a city like Guayaquil, which is a huge city and a port city where these gangs or these operations tend to happen a lot more frequently. So you're not 100% at risk going to Ecuador itself, but you are at risk if you come and are like not taking the precautions. It's not the topic of the video, of
Yeah,
course,
we're talking
talking
about the
about
election,
safety.
so yeah, just very briefly. So,
Uh-huh. But
what do
just,
you say?
giving the idea that yes, there is this crime, but it's not like you're gonna go out and experience it at once.
But and do you think it's improved with Noboa and that people there feel like yeah, Noboa is doing something and we feel better now? Because in Cuenca, it's like this in general. We don't hear that it's gotten worse with the prison taken care of. Also, this thing of the calls, the extortions improve a lot. You don't hear too much bad news here. The mayor also, well, he has done some stuff, but talking about Noboa's government, many people that don't feel they are being threatened a lot here, they see that Noboa is doing a good job. That's why Noboa won in this area, actually.
Here's kind
but
of
what there?
Well, here it's kind of the reverse because it's like it depends on who you ask kind of situation. Like if you ask me, I see the situation the same as before. And if you I remember talking to someone at work at the high school that I was teaching at, and I remember there was a person who said like outside their house they could hear gunshots. There was always like gunshots in their neighborhood, and that was something that wasn't happening before. So it's like if depending on it's hit or miss. It's like you said, it's this line that goes up and goes down. Like if you ask one person, they're super happy. I have a friend who's like, I don't know if I would call it noboista, but like a Noboa supporter, like through and through. And they're always like commenting on Noboa's posts with the purple hearts. They're like sharing the things that they do that Noboa has
The
done.
color of the party. And
Yeah, they're not even involved in the party, and they're just like they're
okay.
diehard supporter because they think that Noboa has been doing good things. And then there's the other people who are like, no, Noboa's not doing anything. Noboa is just like literally everything is just staying the same. He's promised a whole bunch of things that he hasn't fulfilled. Phoenix Plan is imaginary because it's like there were a whole bunch of things that were proposed and a whole bunch of things that have not happened. So it's like it really here it's really depends on who you ask. There are some people who see Noboa as the miracle drug, and there's other people who see Noboa as the drug that's going to destroy the country. So there's that big mix over here, and maybe as you mentioned earlier, it has to do with the perspective of Correismo itself, since it's more ingrained in people here. People want to see big changes because that's what they saw during the time of Correa. That's who they support. So if they don't see those big changes, it's equivalent to nothing. Like, just to look at it like this, if Correa did, like, let's just say 50, let's just put a number on it. He did 50 things. If Noboa does 49, he didn't do enough. He's not doing anything. That's how people see it. Like, literally, it's never gonna be enough unless it's more than what Correa did. That's what it looks like living over here in that sense.
Maybe, but even though the thing is that the tangible things, where are they? But well, in a moment to infrastructure, like to close this part of security, yeah, when there is a bad event, when there is bad news here, also you will hear people say, ah, that's the Phoenix plan that the government is promoting. That means nothing. We're really bad. But since it's so weird, uh, that's what I would say. Most people support Noboa here because it remains calm. But in general, I mean, in overall in the whole country, you know that it's not enough. Yeah, they're catching people, they are arresting the bad guy or many of the bad guys, but you still hear bad news in the overall with big leaders. Also because of the judicial system, but that would be a different talk we could have. Okay, but that's the perception of the president here. There there are many people supporting Correismo because they saw the changes, and also because they have family in other places. So people with families in relatives in Guayaquil, they know what they're suffering. People with relatives in Manabi also, or people who travel, who had businesses or properties there, they see, or they could see the differences that happen. So they say, now, where do you see the first hospital built by Noboa? Where do you see the first big thing made by Noboa? Nothing.
You
So
know,
now we can move to the other part of Noboa's government, the work, the infrastructure. But it's
yeah.
only 1 year and a half. So many people say, no, he still needs more time because it's too early to judge him. So we should vote for him to give him the opportunity to do things, to do real things.
I do. There's something that I do want to mention in regards to that, the infrastructure, but I feel like I should leave that in to the part of discussion. Uh, what I will say that just to give a little pre about that is I don't know if you saw the images that were floating around from the presidency itself about the highways that were being fixed, rebuilt. Like there was way too much AI in those highways because people were commenting instantly like what are you talking about? I just went through this place and it's the same. I don't know. I think that was a big mess up by the government.
Yeah,
Like they say here, that I think the government wanted people to comer cuento.
in the official social media of the government, they posted that they were making this bridge in an area in Manabi, and it had the colors of the party and like the official, because the communications of the government are using the same color of the Noboa's party, this purple, and saying we made this bridge for this area, this fabulous bridge, like selling it as the big thing. And what I saw, because I'm not from there, but what I saw people commenting on other pictures, like, this is a scam. I mean, this bridge has been there. They just like were maybe painting the borders or something, but it's not a work of them, and they are not really delivering something new here. And that's what I mean. The government has been caught in many lies that is being just like propaganda. So that's also why they are voting for Correismo, because with Correismo, when they saw propaganda of works, at least it was because there was a work. But with this government, they are discovering many made up stories, and which is another bad thing.
Hmm. Like for real. So in terms of infrastructure, like you said, there might not be enough time, and that's something that, like I said, I'll talk about later. As we can talk about later as well. I'll leave it over here.
We could give the benefit of the doubt because, yeah, it's early for
Technically,
and we have no cash.
that was I had that in mind also, and then it just went away when I was thinking about the AI images about how there was maybe more opportunities to do things in the time of Korea because there was that cash, but now we're in such a heavy debt that there just isn't the same opportunities. But you know, we
Exactly.
can talk about that in thoughts.
So even if Correismo comes back, it will be a problem because it's not the same income that the country has now. But the barrel of petroleum is at a lower price. We have higher debt, and that makes it difficult. Even if Correismo comes back and wants to do the same thing as they did before, lots of works every month, because there's no money. Some people say that one good part of Noboa is that he has been financially responsible in terms of paying the debt. Some other people say, no, why are you paying the debt instead of prioritizing the wellness of people? But the thing is that we have no money, we have a lot of debt, and Noboa in a way has been keeping it, or not, like going to China and asking for more money. He has been talking with the IMF to get more money, and he has been doing some stuff so that the IMF gives more money. But I think they are still waiting to see what happens with the elections. But at the moment, we are not like getting a lot of more debt, and also because we're funding this with the raised VAT and other taxes that the president increased.
So going on with the same things that we were talking about, we went a lot into these topics of crime and infrastructure. So that's kind of
Our main concern, the crime right now. I mean, that's why.
it's just that that's probably the most important talking point. But to talk about the other things, we also have these points from the current government, the fights with the other countries, the treatment of rivals, and also, of course, the blackouts and sabotage. So, of course, we all know about the situation, or well, we know, but for some people who might not know about how we technically fought with Mexico, but not for no reason. There was a reason behind that. It's just some people feel like there was too much emphasis put on that instead of being put on other things that were maybe more important, like keeping good relations with Mexico. But I think this is kind of something external from that. I guess you could say kind of it does relate, but it doesn't. I don't know if how much you've seen of this whole what's happening in the United States with Trump trying to put taxes on everything and everyone and like very heavy taxes. And I felt like there was a time where we were supporting what Trump was doing, kind of just to not make an enemy of the United States. I don't want to get too much into that topic, but like it just goes into the idea of fighting with other countries. Like supporting one country just to not have a problem with them, but putting yourself in maybe a more precarious position when talking to another country. What do you think?
Well, Noboa is. Uh, he lived for a while with the Secretary of Health, Kennedy Jr. So that's why actually he got in the first line in Trump's possession in January. And he lived in the United States. He graduated at Harvard, so he has a lot of this like American vision, and that's why he wants to be friends with the U.S. As much as possible. But even now, he's like almost a relative of part of the administration because he lived for a while with Kennedy Jr. And on the other hand, he considers himself well, in ideology, sometimes he said he's right, he's center left, his own definition. Most people would consider him center right, but in some policies, I would call him center left. The thing is that he is very aligned with the US in terms of being friends with the US, being friends with the current administration, Trump, and everything that is left, he preferred to have them as enemies, let's say, than being friends with them. For example, with Mexico, in Mexico, for people who don't have this context, several people of Correa's party, or several Correistas politicians, are there with asylum. They escaped from Ecuador because they were going to be arrested, they were being prosecuted, and they are with asylum in Mexico. The former vice president of Correa, Jorge Glass, he was also looking for asylum. He left prison because of, well, some benefits he got because of some job just gave him these benefits. And when he knew he was going to be arrested again, that he was being prosecuted, he entered the embassy of Mexico in Quito, in Ecuador. And when they knew, according to intelligence of Noboa's government, that Glass was going to escape to Mexico, the government entered the embassy of Mexico, invaded. There was a raid on the Mexican embassy, and they took Jorge Glass outside. You can I talk about this in a video, but you can also watch the YouTube news like Ecuador, a Mexican embassy, and what happened, because the videos are there. It was like no one was expecting this. that the president ordered, like, okay, I don't care, I don't want this guy to escape, whatever it takes, let's enter that embassy and take this guy out. It was worldwide news because it was like one country violating another country in the most shocking way. And Noboa didn't really. Many people say they don't. He doesn't think about consequences. He just wants to be seen as a strong man, and whatever he wants, he will get it. And that's what he did. He ordered to have Jorge Glass arrested from the embassy, even if it was leading to big trouble with the region, not only with Mexico, but also like being investigated or maybe being punished by the other associations like UN or Organización de Estados Americanos. I forgot the name in English, but all the regional organizations that may punish Ecuador or may sanction Ecuador because of what of this type of actions of invasion of an embassy. And well, he got Jorge Glass arrested, but that cut the relations with Mexico. We don't have an embassy of Mexico here. The migrants of Ecuador who are going to the US illegally and are arrested in Mexico don't have, let's say, like personnel that can assist them in Mexico because there are no consulates of Ecuador. The president of Mexico actually said a couple of weeks ago that she hopes she can start soon talking with a lady president because she openly supports Correa and Luisa Gonzalez, candidate of the Correismo. Noboa, during the debate, which we will talk about in a moment, he kept talking about Luisa Gonzalez's view on Venezuela's regime and like everything in the region that is the left. Noboa, again, he prefers to be enemies with these people, to be friends of, let's say, the US and other countries than being like in neutral relations or friends with these people. That's basically how we would see it. With Colombia, that has also a leftist government, well, it's much more difficult because Colombia provides us a good part of our electricity, and also because we are neighbor countries. So being like enemies with Colombia is difficult. That would stop policies of attacking the guerrillas, the drug trafficking, narcos in the border. So I think that's why Noboa, like, he doesn't really say anything about the Colombian government because otherwise, if he didn't depend on Colombia's support, he would also attack the leftist government of Colombia. And well, Peru doesn't really have a leftist government, so it's okay. But that's the Noboa attack on other countries. Like, I don't really care. I care what Ecuadorians think about me, and actually, many people, I would say most people were against the embassy raid, but most people were against that. But many people say, yeah, we want the Correistas presos, we want Jorge Glass presos, so what Noboa did was good, even though that caused lots of issues in terms of, especially of the migrants that were crossing Mexico to get to the United States or people deported from the US to Mexico. That's a big thing. Then Noboa even wanted to raise tariffs to Mexico, but it's more what we buy from Mexico than what we sell to Mexico. We depend more on Mexican products. So, but Noboa, it's like he doesn't really care about this, but it's like he wants to be seen as a strong man. Some people like that, but it has consequences.
Since we talked about the fights with other countries, let's move on with the situation with the blackouts and sabotage, I guess. The way he treats rivals. If we want to talk about the way that he treated, you could say, Luisa. But yeah, I just going into the situation with the blackouts and sabotage. I remember when that was going on, there was the idea that sabotage was coming from the outside, but recently I've heard that it was actually internal sabotage, like from this government. What do you know about that?
Well, it's not what I know, but what they have told. Because when we started having outages, uh, the former Ministry of Environment, she mentioned that she had informed Noboa that action had to be taken because our power in Ecuador is mainly from hydroelectrics, mostly, and she had warned that there may be a very severe drought. The rainy season ended early last year, earlier than usual, and the the dams or the flows of the rivers, because we have one in the south, Mazar, which actually the river going down has 3 hydroelectric power plants, and it was getting dry because of the drought, and she had informed the president, or that's what she said. And the president said at the very beginning that she had been responsible for this, that she was like in a conspiration, and that there was a sabotage from the inside of the government to empty the dam so that there was no electricity, so that he could lose the referendum, the popular consultation we had last year. And that's what he said, with no evidence. 1 year later, no evidence yet. Actually, the former Ministry of Environment, she was called to the assembly to talk about the situation, but she didn't appear because she said, she made a letter which was shocking, because she said, I will not be used by the politicians in their struggle to just for political, or for what is most convenient to either party. But I have the evidence that I warned the president about the situation in advance, and basically saying that the president knew and the president did nothing about what she was warning, about taking action so that there were no outages. But on the other hand, the government says, or Noboa, that there is sabotage. There was sabotage, and that this part may have been part of all of this to attack the government from the inside. And last week we had a very strong situation again, which was one pipe of petroleum that goes from the Amazon to the Pacific Ocean to the refineries, and then to take the petroleum to export it. One section just before getting to the Esmeraldas area, it broke, and we got spilled 25,000 barrels of petroleum. It's a very hard situation what's happening there, with all the pollution in the river, in the crops, and there are people living there. But well, the government again said sabotage, that there is something made in purpose to attack them, even though the current Ministry of Environment, not the same as last time, she said at the beginning that it was a landslide that caused the pipe to break. And there was another situation, I don't recall which, but that they said again it was sabotage, but with no evidence. And that's something that the people are seeing, like, okay, you say sabotage, but where's the evidence? The people that support Noboa, like, I'm with Noboa for everything, they say, yes, it's sabotage because the Correistas are criminals, they are like that, they do this type of things, and yes, they want to take power, so they want Noboa to be seen as badly as possible. But where's the evidence again? And how he treats the opponents. It all has to do with this, like the former Ministry of Environment, during the outages, she was dismissed by Noboa, of course, because he said this is sabotage and she's involved. But not only that, he filed like a suit against her to be investigated by the prosecutor's office, because she had something to do with it and she had to be investigated. So far, that has led to nothing. She is not arrested, in case you're wondering. The thing is that Noboa does this type of things. He accuses, no evidence, but he tries to do everything as possible to block what he sees as enemies. with one candidate which many people say could have beaten Noboa easily in the elections, in the debate, and in these current elections. Jan Topic, which had as his first proposal improving security. Actually, he's the owner of the number one company of security in the country, Cajamarca, or a private security company. He's a businessman. Noboa did everything possible because he has connections to the electoral court. It's a type of court that the electoral power has to rule how the elections are run. This is not like openly made, but if you look deeply at it, you know it was made on purpose, and that, I mean, it's so evident that you cannot deny it. But Jan Topic was blocked, and he was blocked, accused of being able to have benefits from being inside the government, because he has private companies that have provided services to the government before. Topic, yes, he was in companies that provided services to the government, like he was the CEO, he was the major shareholder, but he left this, like his shares, he sold them. And some say, no, this is right because this guy would have been benefited a lot by being the president. It can't be possible. But in a way, Noboa is doing the same with the relatives. The thing is that legally, Topic had already gotten rid of his like shares in those companies, and he even ran for presidency in 2023 when Noboa was also a candidate and he won. But Jan Topic could have won now in these elections 2025, but was blocked, and he was not accused by anyone of this in 2023 when he was a candidate, because they didn't see him as a winner. But this time Noboa saw him as a really good rival, so he blocked him. He did everything that was possible to block him, and he did it. And after that, Topic tried to challenge that decision. So what happened? The government imposed sanctions on Topic's companies, and Topic has like the number one company of internet here. He brought like the main submarine cable, to bring fiber optic, to bring internet to mainland Ecuador, and they removed the concession from Topic's companies, like saying no, that contract was badly made, and there are mistakes here, even though Topic then proved that it's not. And Topic's father, which actually was the main owner of the internet company, saying no, we're proving this. But then there was another sanction against the Topics from the I think it's the Inter-American Development Bank, something. Well, it's a regional organization because they are related to corruption cases, and that was under investigation. But courts abroad that were investigating this showed that there were no real corruption ties that could be proven for the Topics. But the thing is that, or this was seen as a message, like, you keep trying to do something against the government, and we're going against your companies, your family, your wealth, your wellness, everything, your wealth. So now we don't hear anything about Topic. He's not posting on social media. He's not doing anything. But he could
he
win.
completely disappeared after that. I was surprised because before the elections, like, he had been like posting things, talking about the energy crisis, like the things that he was planning to do, and then he just went radio silent. You didn't hear anything from him.
Because, and also friends of his were attacked. Like there was a guy who was partnering a business with Topic, and he provided the company of this friend of Topic's provided the meals for the prisons. But Noboa said, this guy or this company has been entering the guns in the prisons through the meals, with no evidence again. And 1 year after that accusation and opening the case in the prosecutor's office, no evidence. And so they took the contract of the meals for the prisons and for the schools from this company, and granted the meals for the schools to companies that uh, are related to Noboa's relatives, and the meals for the prisons were given to another company. But after they took the prisons and removed this company that was entering the weapons in the prisons, we still had again uh, guns entered, and let's say strong events inside the prisons that were taken, like the criminals were taking again control of the prison. This in the Penitenciaría de Guayaquil, aka Penny. And but I mean, this is just when he sees enemies, he attacks them as much as possible, hitting them hard in contracts, in money, in sanctions, whatever. And the most scandalous case was with the vice president, Veronica Abad. Here, like in the United States, the president chooses the person that will run with him to be the vice president, or with her to be the vice president. And Noboa selected Veronica Abad. Veronica Abad is known to be like a far right person. She even wore the MAGA cap, and she posted some tweets like supporting Trump, and she made videos talking about dismantling the state as much as possible, because she is a libertarian in terms of politics or ideology. She says there should be as less state as possible. Noboa chose her either way. I mean, this was before Noboa was a candidate. But even after that, Noboa chose her as the partner to run. And they say that it was just because he had to meet the quota. Because in Ecuador, to have vice president and president, they must have different sex. Like, if the president is, or the candidate for president is man, the vice president must be a woman. If the candidate for president is a woman, the candidate for vice president must be a man. So Noboa had to choose someone, and he chose Veronica Abad. Why? Most of us believe it's because Noboa didn't have any chance to win. There were more than 10 candidates in the elections in 2023, and Noboa was not even in the top 5 in any polls. Then they murdered Villavicencio, and things started to change. The two main candidates at that time were Luisa Gonzalez, again, and I don't recall if the second one was between Topic and... But Noboa was not even in the top 5. That's the thing. And then with the debate after the murder of Villavicencio, Noboa performed really well, outstandingly in the debate. So people saw like, oh, okay, this guy from Harvard, very young, fresh ideas. He didn't attack anyone. He just said, these are my proposals. This is what I will do. This is what will happen, what we will do to change Ecuador. And he did a very good debate. So after the debate, he started being in the top 3. Then we went to elections, and he entered in the second position for the runoff. And then he won in the runoff. So that means that Veronica Abad won as vice president. But there were internal struggles. And Noboa, when he got to the presidency, he tried to get rid of her. He cannot just dismiss her because she's being elected as well. People here vote for both, like the formula Noboa Abad or Gonzalez and the other guy that I don't recall at this moment. The thing is, Abad is the vice president elected by people. Noboa cannot get rid of her that easily, and he's been trying to do whatever. And there were many things, and like he's been trying to have her dismissed, which is not possible by the constitution, with sanctions of the Minister of Labor, that when the ministry or the Minister of Labor was taken to the court to argue why he tried to dismiss her, they couldn't defend this. I mean, there was no article in the law, anything that could justify what they were doing. So no, Veronica Abad is still the vice president. She's got sanctions now because of some words she said about the Minister of Foreign Affairs, like calling. Well, she actually told her, "You have to respect me because I'm your boss." And the Minister of Noboa Foreign Affairs denounced her, saying that she was committing gender violence, like because she was a woman, she was attacking her. As ridiculous as it sounds, but this is all one more step in trying to make Veronica Bat get out. And now she was sent to Turkey to work there, like kind of an ambassador. She had at the beginnings been sent to Israel to work for the peace between Palestine and Israel. But it was just like to get rid of her, and it's been amazing. Now Noboa is a candidate, so she has to give Veronica Abad the lead, at least during the campaign, because he cannot run. He cannot be the president and candidate. This is being at the moment violated, but well, this is part of what Ecuador is now. The thing is, Noboa, if and he said it, it's there. He said it in public when he was talking to media. Like, I am a terrible, very very bad enemy. No one wants me as an enemy, and he has proven himself. Yeah.
That's a very direct and harsh. I don't know how to say it, but it's a very dark way to express yourself in front of an audience of people who are voting for you. It kind of makes me think a little bit about the time going back to Correismo, where you can't even express yourself without the fear that you might get some kind of repercussion. Ironically, since it's ironic because we're trying to distinguish the two, and that's something that almost feels like they have in common. But all right,
Exactly. Yeah,
but
it's a fair
it's good
fear.
to hear all these things and to let the audience know what's happening, because some of these things are things that I knew about the situation with Avad, like her getting sent to these other places, and that apparently not being a very good thing. But to hear it like laid out the way that you did, it gives everyone a perspective as to what kind of treatment Noboa gives to people who he, I guess you could say, doesn't like. Okay, so now that we have that, let's talk about the debate.
The
Now we can get
debates. Yeah.
into the most
The
recent.
main point.
Well, I mean, we call it a debate because that's the name that they gave it, but you know.
Exactly.
All right, so let's just begin. We don't even have to go into too much of their proposals because, first, what did you think of the debate as a whole?
The debate is mandatory, so both had to appear. Yes. And the thing is that they were there to debate their ideas and show their proposals to the people. This was a national broadcast. And the thing is that they didn't talk too much about their proposals. The analysis of the media and all of that showed that only like 1/3 of the time was used to talk about proposals. What they did was mainly struggling and accusing, like, you did this in the past, you did this, you're a liar, you are a friend of the thieves, your president is this, your teammate is this, and that's what happened. So it was not a debate. It was more like a discussion to increase the rating at TV at that moment, something like that.
No, I was thinking of it as like an argument between like a couple, like but a couple that always breaks up. Like they break up, they get back together, and then they remember, yeah, but you did this in the past, and I forgave you, and no, but you did that. Like that's the way I viewed it. Kind of like externally, it felt kind of like they were just there to fight, like you said, just kind of like let me make you look bad, so I look a little bit better.
Exactly, exactly, and that's the idea, and that's why I, as an Ecuadorian, I am mad at, because it's not about I can do better with this, with this proposal, or let's improve this. It's not like they are worse, they are worse. No, these guys, they are so bad. Look at them, they are super bad. No, and they know that guy. Look what he's doing. He's super bad. But no, it's not like. Actually, that's what took Noboa to presidency in the first in 2023, because he was not attacking anyone. He was talking like, we'll do this, we're new people, we're new Ecuador, and this is what we will do. But now it's not.
That
They are bad. They are bad.
it's like while everyone else was attacking each other and some people were talking about volleyball, Noboa was on topic. Like, let's talk about this is the situation. This is what we have to
Exactly.
do. But the rhetoric has changed. The conversation is completely different now. It was like we said, it was a fight, which is in some ways like ironic because both of them fed into or feed into the idea that the population already has. The population is already seeing this election. Well, I kind of feel like we always see things like this as which one is the least worst. ¿Cuál es el menos mal? Like that's what everyone is always like. I feel always thinking about with elections, but right now it's like that's what everyone is thinking about.
Yeah.
Which one is gonna be less worse? And they're feeding into that. They're literally like saying like, no, this person is bad. Like I might be bad, but this person is worse. So they're feeding into it by giving everyone those ideas. Like, hey, look at this person who did these things bad, and the other one's like, oh no, but look, he did these things bad. So they're just feeding into that idea that people are gonna like just choose which one is least worse. Like as long as like you have more arguments against that person to make them look bad, they're gonna look worse than you, even if you look bad. So, you just choose this person.
Yeah. Maybe we can't go question by question, topic by topic during the debate, but mainly it was. They divided into security, education, healthcare in different sections, and in each section there were questions and time for them to make their proposals. But also for the candidate, like to counter or to question them, like, okay, how are you going to do this? What are you going to do about this? And several times they were evading the answer, like, no, they were answering something else. And the moderator was not there, like, you have to answer the question. That's something that was criticized. And we could maybe mention three main topics. The thing is that in the end they didn't really answer, and they when the media did fact checking, they found that there had been some lies. There had been some. Well, in most times Noboa answered with the truth, but in other
He had a
times
higher
he
percentage
answered
of truth than Luisa.
yes. But Noboa also answered in some other questions without accuracy, like twisting a little bit the answer. But yeah, he had a higher percentage of truth than Luisa in his answers, because Luisa was like trying to attack and with whatever she could think at the moment. And Noboa was more calm. He's like that. He speaks slowly. He's like trying to be calm, but also trying to be ironic and attack the other person. He's like this, and he's always with this pose. But in the end, the thing is that Noboa has been caught in so many things that he promised during the first debate, during the first election, sorry, and that he didn't comply with, and also like how he has attacked the enemies and has focused maybe more in that than in other things, that it was easy for Luisa to put many things against Noboa. The thing is that behind Luisa you have people that people know are corrupt. So that's what gives an advantage to Noboa. For example, if Luisa maybe was running with another party, Luisa may have a big advantage in the polls now. But at this moment, no. The Venezuelans were a topic, the Venezuelan migrants. And Noboa was pushing hard on this because he was saying, are you going to acknowledge Maduro's regime, dictatorship? Are you going to acknowledge him as president? And this is because Rafael Correa is a friend of Maduro. And Noboa actually works. He receives a salary from the Venezuelan government as a consultant or for consultancy about economic matters. And she was avoiding this. She had an interview with CNN in Spanish, like CNN Latin America, and she avoided answering about Maduro and declaring he. On the other hand, Correa, he said, yes, of course, we're recognizing, we're acknowledging Maduro. Why not? Because gringos, Americans don't want us to. He's the president. Even though it's been proven that he stole the elections, that he arrests people protesting, that, I mean, he's a total dictator. And Luisa, in the debate, Noboa, like, questioned her a lot about this. And in the end, this was like the most epic moment of the debate, because Noboa asked her, okay, yes or no, answer clearly. Are you going to acknowledge Maduro or no? And the other party had to answer yes or no, and then had a time to argue, to explain the answer. And she said yes. And then she explained that she was going to recognize Maduro's or Nicolas Maduro as the president of Venezuela, because that was the only way to expel, to take the Venezuelans that are
Oh
taking
yeah,
our
yeah, yeah.
jobs out. And the Venezuelans that are taking our jobs and that are committing crimes in our country. So yes, because I want the best for our country and acknowledging him. But that's nothing at all similar to what Correismo has been saying during all these years. And actually, in the last fraud, the last elections, the party, Revolución Ciudadana, sent a team to Venezuela, like, to verify the elections. And they didn't say it was a fraud. They were there recognizing Maduro and he as the winner. But Luisa now is saying, because it's convenient to her in this moment, that yes, she will acknowledge Maduro, but because she wants to get rid of the criminals here. That was super, let's say, Trump. And actually, she said, I'm quoting, we are doing the same as the United States because we want the safety for our people first. And yeah, even though it was because of Korea's policies that Venezuelans started coming by a lot first. But the thing is that this was a big contradiction for the leftist party and for Luisa Gonzalez. Noboa pushed hard and in a way got her to say something that maybe was not planned. This is nothing at all what the party has said in the last years, actually, in all the years.
She was cornered and kind of felt pressured to say something and had a South Park moment. They took our jobs.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can look on YouTube.
No, I
Luisa
remember that. I
González
remember that,
sobre
but I
venezolanos.
overlooked it.
That's what she said.
Like when I heard it, I overlooked it because I was just so shocked that she finally said yes. Because like the whole time, I remember before they had asked her that in like a different debate. Like not, I don't know, I never if it was a debate or if they had like just interviewed her and they asked her like, "Do you support this government?" And she didn't want to answer. She would say anything except for yes or no. So for her to actually have said yes, I just got stuck with the yes. I'm like, oh wow, she's actually acknowledging it. So like for every like when I heard that, it was more like in my personal opinion, I was like, but that gives people more reason to not trust her because she's supporting a government that isn't really the actual government. So then, why would you elect her as your president? Like, why would you choose her? I just I focused too much on that, and I didn't focus on
Yeah.
everything else that she said after. But when you saying it right now, like giving the context, like how everything else that came after that is just it's so funny.
And the other thing that was a main topic during the debate was that Noboa kept her calling, I think it's in English, is Hermit the Frog from the
Oh
Muppets.
yeah, because of the chats.
The Rana René in Spanish, Hermit the Frog. Why Noboa was calling Luisa Hermit the Frog is because, like, last week or 2 weeks ago, the prosecutor's office posted some chats that had been taken from one guy that was in one of the powers of the government, which is called the Consejo de Participación Ciudadana y Control Social, which would be like the citizen power. It's supposed to be run by independent people to control the other powers, but The thing is that the people that were running this power were openly Correistas. So that's actually why they were dismissed, or they are being investigated, because they are not neutral. And one requirement to enter this power is to be neutral. We vote for them, but Correa made a video like, if I was voting in Ecuador, I would vote for these people. And that was like for saying like, no, it's not like they are from my people. It's not. It's just I'm telling you what I would do if I was voting for people. But they are
No, no
openly
influence
Correistas.
here. This is just, if you want to know my opinion.
So they took the cell phones of the government, the police took the cell phone of one of the guys from this power, and then they were investigating the chats that were posted last week. And in the chats, they all had aliases. Correa was ají con mote, which is corn with like hot sauce, and Luisa Gonzalez was Hermit the Frog, Rana Rene. So Noboa kept telling her, so you, Hermit the Frog, as you are named in the chats, blah, 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 blah. What would you say about this? So Luisa got really mad. Like, you respect me. You are used to treat women as the worst thing. That's with your ex-wife, with your vice president, with your
With his
former minister.
daughter.
She did this, and she was angry. But Noboa doesn't care. I mean, he just wants to be seen as the strong man, and he doesn't really care. He doesn't give up. You know what? And because of the chats, and well, I'm mentioning this part because they mention it a lot during the debate, and also because there was one part in which Luisa, they have not recognized this, like they have not acknowledged these chats. I mean, Korea's party, like saying yes, we are them. No, because that's why they had aliases in the chats. But there was one section of the debate where Luisa said, I may be a frog, but I will never be Cartel de los Sapos. Because she said, and well, this is being investigated, that Noboa Banana Company, one of the bananas companies or the shipping companies where they export the products, has been related to the drug trafficking as well. Like they have contaminated the containers with drug to Europe and all of that. So this is under investigation. According to Noboa, yes, because they have been cooperating with authorities. But this is still under investigation. And even one person that manages several companies of the Noboa holding, and that is the president of the party of Noboa, is under investigation as well. That doesn't mean she's guilty. It's just that she is being investigated. Period. Well, the thing is that she says, I may be a frog, but I will never be Cartel de los Sapos. Cartel de los Sapos would be like frog cartels. There was a famous Colombian TV series that is El Cartel de los Sapos, which was about the drug cartels, narcos, traffickers. So basically, she said, I may be a frog, but I won't ever be never a drug trafficker like you, basically. And I mean, they attacked a lot. It was more than a debate to show proposals. It was, I don't know, a reality TV show for people to be and then watch the memes about the show.
A fight on the playground. When you mentioned that part about how he treats women, I remember one part of the discussion online was how, like, trying to support Noboa was basically like, how is it possible that she would attack his family, specifically his daughter? Like talk about anything, but like not the daughter. Like, so it was like, that was something that stuck with me also. The fact that she would actually, mess with his family, like talk about it as like something to try to make her point more valid. But this just once again goes into the idea, like you said, she got mad. Maybe she didn't measure what she was saying, or she thought what she was saying would have more power, because like if he treats his daughter bad, or if he like doesn't give her the pension or whatever it was, the situation with that, it's like, how is he going to treat everyone else? There's also I think there was a comment that was made. Can't remember if it was in the debate, but I know that it's something that everyone thinks about, and I don't. Maybe I should have left this for a little bit later because we're about to talk about discussion around like what people think. But the idea that Noboa, they don't pay their taxes, they don't pay the things that they should be paying, because there was that whole debt, the whole situation with the debt with the Noboa company that was never really paid off.
The thing is that the well, there are like two versions to this. What the Noboa family argues is that during the Korea government, they took one of the largest farms of the Noboa group, which was La Clementina. And at that time, the Korea's government, through the IRS, SRE here, they would say, okay, you pay the debt or we are seizing this farm. And like in the last minute, the last day, they handed over a check to the IRS, to the SRE office here, and like, okay, we're paying the debt with a check. The government didn't want to take it, like they wanted cash, something. I don't understand well that part, but they were going to pay the Noboa group, but the government didn't take that payment, and they seized the farm, and that seizure would cover the debt that the Noboa group had at that time. But in the system, it was not put as paid or collected by the government or anything. So the debt has been or has kept increasing in interest and increasing. But the government took property from the Noboa group to cover that debt at that time, like 15 years ago, more than 15 years ago, maybe. And that's why that's being on hold there, but well, actually getting interests. And it's, I don't really know if that was fair what the Correa government did at that moment, or or if it is true that they were going to pay, but the debt is there now. I think that they could have argued that, like, okay, remove the debt or not return us the farm and here's your money. We don't know, because the president, when asked during the debate, like, is your family going to pay the debt? No, sorry, she asked, are you going to charge your family the debt? It's 90 million, like over $90 million. And he said no, but that's it. So what will happen?
He kind of brushed away the question, if I remember correctly. Kind of like, no.
So,
That's
I
what made me
mean,
think about that again.
yeah, he could have explained no because of this. But why didn't he explain that? I mean, it was weird, or it's weird, all of this situation with that farm and the season. But the thing is, yeah, they on paper, they owe $90 million to Ecuador.
Maybe that's why they don't want to talk about it too much, because one, like, even if he were to say that that's the case, people probably wouldn't believe it. They're like, oh no, you're just defending your family. And two, typically with these legal situations, what I understand is you're not supposed to say anything. So if he starts giving information, maybe it would be like detrimental to the case he wants to make in court later on. Because I'm assuming if the debt itself has been absolved, like if giving the property, like the government seizing the property, was going to eliminate the debt and it somehow kept accumulating, then if he wants to make a case of it in court by putting himself in a position where he's talking about it, like in a way that maybe gives the other side an advantage, it'll be like detrimental to his case in the future. So
But
maybe that's why he's avoiding talking about it.
But the whole debate was about evading answers. Also, when
Oh
Luisa
yeah.
asked about what do you say about your party's president and that is being accused of narco trafficking, and and she's actually running 9 of your businesses, he evaded totally that answer. I mean, that was weird, but also she evaded some answers. That was the debate, fight and evasion.
That was a quote unquote debate.
Yeah, the least part was proposals.
The most part was argument.
And unfortunately, we only have those two options. At this point, we don't have any others. Either Luisa or
Rightfully.
Noboa.
Well, that leads us into the talk about like what are people saying about Noboa and about Lisa about like this whole situation. I already said basically one of the things, which is basically people are basically voting for the least bad option. Like which option is going to bring us the least trouble?
The thing is that if you have people who are friends of a regime that is dictatorial, that has been ruling a country for over 20 years, and defend them, uh, and this regime, sorry, or these candidates lost power because one person betrayed them. I'm talking about Moreno betraying Correa.
Mhm.
It's difficult to think that they will keep democratic ways if they keep being friends with the Castros in Cuba and Maduro in Venezuela. So that's a big concern, or that's perhaps the biggest concern. The other things are concerns like, yeah, they won't have the same money, but
Oh yeah, the Ecuadores.
Venezuela doesn't have dollars either, and they have been there in power and they keep in power. So that who says that they won't try to do the same here if they are defending this type of regimes? On the other hand, Noboa, you can see because of many of his actions that he only cares about himself and making as much business for himself as and his family as possible. And he treats enemies real bad, even if he has to bypass the law, yeah, bypass other powers. So both ways have things that are very concerning. And as you said a while ago, Correa did these things, but Noboa is also doing this type of things that he was criticizing at the beginning. So that's yeah, that's why I'm concerned, because we only have two options, and we really have to vote. Always we have had to vote for the least, uh, how do you say, the least worst option. But
Yeah, pretty much.
this time you feel it like really both options are bad, because both, and no, Luisa says like that. My administration, under my administration, meaning when Correa was in power. During my administration or during our administration, we did this because she was part of the government as well. So the Correistas have been in power. We know how they are. Noboa has been in power. We know how he is. And it's not like when Noboa won for the first time, because this guy is new, this guy is young, so let's see how he performs. Now we know how he has performed. And that's why it
We
is
know who he
concerning.
is.
In social media, about the opinion of people, I don't watch social media opinions anymore, because it's proven that the government pays people to comment there. Like they say, Noboa is the best, the others are very bad, but also the people that are paid, bot farms, or however you want to call them, or troll farms, they also motivate other people that do believe in Noboa being better than the others to comment and post all of this. And on the streets, we're very divided. I mean, I think these elections will be 48-52 or 49-51, or maybe even 49 point something, 50 point something. You find a little bit of everything. I found, or I've heard, better said, people that defend Noboa because they hate the Correistas, just because they say the Correistas are the worst thing and Noboa is hitting them hard, so let's go with Noboa. And people that really remember Korea's times as better because they started seeing more tourism, more foreigners, works, bridges, highways, things, and they want to see that again. Because with the last few governments, nothing has been done, nothing new, like a big work, like say, wow, yes, this is so good for the country. And actually, most news have been bad, especially with crime. That's the main concern. So we are very divided. Yeah, I think it won't be beyond 52 and 48% the results. More people are voting null, or yeah, they are voting for no, just like scratching the paper or whatever. But either way, one of them will win. And that's the real thing on the streets. You cannot know who, depending on where you are. Here in Cuenca, most people support Noboa. You will see the cardboard dolls in the streets on the windows, on the streets on the windows, and I mean, they really support him. I've heard even people saying, Noboa is not, Noboa can't be blamed for drought or because there's no rain. That we cannot do that. The thing is that Noboa during the debate in 2023 said that he would have an agreement with Israel and he will be ready so that there are no power outages because of drought. But that was not complied with. And on the other hand, the other people also have lied, and I mean both have bad things and very concerning things, especially about democracy. But one has to win. We want to vote. Most of us want to vote blank or null so that the elections are repeated again with new candidates or that.
Just draw a giant sad face.
Uh, I mean, and the opinion on the streets is pretty much Noboa to stop Correism, to stop the leftists, to stop Maduro, to stop the gangs. And on the other hand, Luisa to stop the gangs as well, because with Correa, Ecuador was the second safest country, but also to stop the neoliberalism and the rich people who also only want to make business for their families and sell Ecuador to the IMF and all of that. And because we want a better quality of life. But both sides are convinced of that. It's very difficult to say who will win at this point. I would say Noboa, because people are afraid of the leftism. I am afraid of the leftism, if you ask. But the thing is that here, at least, they could see good things during the leftist times, but it wouldn't be the same if they come back. But Noboa, the main mistake is that he has performed badly. He could have said after the elections, the first round, like, okay, people are not voting in the same level we thought because they thought they would win in the first round. And actually, they had to prepare everything for a celebration in Guayaquil. And Noboa didn't declare that night. Actually, they canceled everything they had for that night because he saw he had to go for a runoff. And it's not what he expected. And I think Noboa could have said, well, this is a llamado de atención. This is like a message from the people so that we check on what we have done and we improve things. But no, Noboa was mainly like, the narcos are gaining territory, the narcos are winning power, I am doing well and I'm giving them struggle, so that's why they are so angry and threatening people in poor areas to vote against me. But
that's even why he's not going to allow cell phones into this voting session. Like, he's going to the extreme because I don't know. I'm not sure if he actually believes what he's saying or if he's trying to convince everyone that what he's saying is the reality. Like, no, the reason why we're losing is because people are being threatened to vote for the other side. If they don't, they're gonna bad things are gonna happen to them. So that's why we need to ban the cell phones. And people, I don't know, maybe he believes people believe that, or maybe that's actually what he believes.
yeah, I mean, there's no real evidence of what he has claimed, but yeah, maybe people will believe and will vote because he's the guy hitting the narcos and the drug traffickers and Correismo. So we'll know in 2 weeks from now. No, 3 weeks from now.
You know, I kind of think like the reason why maybe he believes people believe these things is because if you think about I don't know if you heard about in the States that people were believing that there were people from other countries eating people's pets. So maybe he believes if people can believe that, they're likely to believe that over here there's corruption. It's just
And I
things that
know
I think about.
there are. I mean, people will believe whatever Noboa says, and that's a big problem. Yeah, that would be like my perhaps my final message to people interested in knowing about the situation in Ecuador is that there is this big, huge part of people on the extremes. Maybe they are the most. We in the center are few. That if you tell these people from Noboa's or Noboa supporters that Noboa has been doing bad in this, they will tell you Correísta. You are a Correísta, you're supporting the
Mhm.
narcos, you're supporting the crime, blah, 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 blah. And no, I mean, I actually, I'm against Correismo, but Noboa is doing bad, or Noboa is doing badly. And they say, no, you're a Correísta. And on the other hand, as well, like, the Correismo is doing these things bad. They cannot be supporting dictators, blah, blah, blah. You are from Noboa, you are righteous, you are far right, you are a fascist, and all of that. And that's sick because there is this huge amount of people that cannot believe. I mean, they cannot understand, they cannot think it's a possibility that you are against bad things here and bad things here, and that you don't support any, or that you are. I mean, they just think if you are against one part of this, you are with the others. If you are against one part of this, no, you're with the others. There's not a third way. That's my biggest concern, and I know this is happening in many parts of the world, but I think we deserve better.
I mean, I just have to say, going into some of my thoughts on the things, the rumors and stuff, the situation with, like you were saying, there's the people who will vote for one side just to make sure that the other side loses. It's not the right way to vote because you're not really even taking into account the situation that's happening. You're not really thinking about it in a way that makes sense. You just vote because you just don't want to see the other side win. Doesn't make sense.
It's like a
There's
football
the
match.
there's the null, the nulo, which is just basically what people are starting to believe is a good idea because if both sides are bad, might as well vote for the side that's neutral, quote unquote. But realistically, I always think that's never gonna work because there's so many people with interest, some kind of interest, either because my family is in the government, I've got a good job that's secured because of something with the government. If this side wins, I'm gonna get something. That there's never gonna be a majority vote for neutral, like for neither side, because there's interest, there's self-interest. No matter what, how you look at it, there's some kind of self-interest involved in this. Uh, and going back a little bit on the things that we had mentioned before that I did want to mention, the whole situation with the highways and things that have been done by previous government. I'm kind of tired of the idea of current governments, not just this one, but every government that comes by, that it's okay to ignore past, like past constructions, past things that have been done because they're not your things. Like I always use the highways as an example. No one wants to fix the highways because they were built during Korea's time. If you fix the highway, it's like acknowledging that Korea did something good. But that's dumb because this is something that benefits everyone, even you as the person who's in power. Like you need to get by too. So having a good road is convenient for you as well. I don't know. And then there's the debt that was left behind from Correismo, which I just wanted to add a little bit of like my thoughts on that. Maybe it's caused this government to not do the best that it could, and any government that came after Correa, it just left them in the worst position to do things, which once again goes into what you said about Noboa being very like good at spending the money, I guess, like not asking for more loans that he knows he's not going to be able to pay back, even if
Or
it's not
because they don't
beneficial
want
for
to
the
loan to
for
lend.
the people. like in the sense that, oh, we're not constructing things, we're not doing things. At least maybe there's a little bit more money to pay off the debt and to leave the country in a better position in the future. It's just some things that I was thinking about when I was thinking about the situation with the discussion, the things that I hear, the things that I personally have have absorbed from this whole situation, so that we can now end off with our final thoughts.
Eh, sorry, I think I moved ahead right in my final thoughts because it's basically I'm concerned, and I know a big part is also concerned, but most are in this football soccer stadium supporting their team, and they are not seeing that. I mean, the stadium is one for all of us, and if we ruin it or we choose someone who rules over the whole stadium and ruins it, we are all going to be ruined. And that's my biggest concern now, that we choose someone just because we don't want the others, and we don't demand from this person we choose to be responsible and to govern as well as possible, not only for a small group, but like in the benefit of the whole nation.
Honestly, for me, I think about this election, and it's something that I've tried to mention a lot, like to people who I talk to. I see it as kind of the turning point. This is the turning point for Ecuador, in my mind, of course, because of course you can argue that no, if one side wins, then the other side didn't get the chance. To me, it's the turning point, because if people choose to go back to Correismo, and if Correismo, even if it succeeds, because I kind of think that there's gonna be some kind of success in, at least in the sector of crime, because of the things that we already know about, the things that everyone talks about, the treaties that the government, that not the government, yeah, well, the government has with the criminals, the connections that are established there in order to keep the peace. So if it succeeds, it fails, because it tells people that everything that's being said is true. That this government has such good ties with the criminals that if they're elected, things go back to peaceful mode. When that's not really true peace, because you're letting bad things happen in the background. Externally, it looks peaceful, but it's not really peace, because it's never going to be peace if there's still someone in the background doing things that, in your mind, you know that you wouldn't do, because it's not right, it's not legal. And then if the other side wins, and if it fails, we still win, because we know that we can't go with this route again. Basically, if Noboa wins, if Noboa does everything good, we still win, because hey, Noboa is doing things good. But if Noboa fails, then we know that after these 4 years, or maybe even less, I'm kind of hoping that it goes 4 years and we just like,
We
okay,
need
we move
stability.
on. But like, if people are unsatisfied, well, you can technically get rid of this person. It's not easy, but I guess technically it can be done. But once again, if he fails, we know we made a bad choice, and we know that we can't make that choice again. I don't know if that's gonna lead people to go back to Correismo in the next time, the next election, because when the next election is this one, but the next election, I don't know if people are gonna, if Noboa fails, go back to Correismo. I kind of hope that at that point we'll have a better candidate, we'll have better options. Maybe Correismo will finally give up. I don't know. But it feels like this is the turning point. This is the point where, regardless of which side wins, we're gonna see something big happen. Whether it be big in the sense that we no longer go for Correismo, or we acknowledge that what we want is to be controlled by the mafia so that we have safety, or we go for the government of Noboa, it fails, and we just know that we can't choose that government anymore. Because, you know, I'd assume that after this, Noboa can run again, and if he doesn't do well, who's going to vote for him again? So, this is, in my mind, the turning point. This is our chance to hopefully move away from these things to get better. And you could always say that, yeah, that's the situation with every election. It's gonna change something big. But for us who we know what the country was like before, like, oh, everything was peaceful, now it's gone through this very turbulent time. This is kind of our chance to see if we can go back to that peace, but that's going to be a long standing peace, or if it's going to go back to that peace that's going to be peaceful on the outside, not peaceful on the inside, or if we just realize we've just been making terrible mistakes and maybe we finally learn and stop making the same decisions that keep putting us in these bad positions. I don't know. To me, this is what this means. This is the turning point. And I just hope that the turning point goes the best way possible.
I hope we start getting ourselves more informed and informed better, reading, watching different media, contrasting, because otherwise we will keep just one version of one side of the story, and then we vote only because we want to support a team, not because we want to support the best in terms of proposals or values, just my team, and like football.
I have to choose that team because it's my team. I don't care if all their players are bad, but I want
So
that team.
whomever we choose, hopefully we start doing that, because that would be the only way I think we can really improve and demand. Like, no, these people are starting doing bad things, we will claim. Or the others are bad, but this guy is also doing bad things, so we will claim from him that is empowered. But we will be able to complain only if we know. And to know, we need to inform ourselves.
Here's to the age of information and to people actually being informed.
Well, see you on April 13th, I think.
For sure, Lewis. Let's hope April 13th brings good things. And of course, thank everyone for taking the time to listen to us give our thoughts and analyze what will be the presidential election for Ecuador in 2025.
Hope for the best. Be ready for the worst. How is it that you say?
Hope for the best, expect the worst.
That. And thank you. Thank you, everyone. And if you're interested, leave the comments. And I know we can add some information there also in the answers, or maybe prepare another video more concise, answering like questions and answers of what you left in the comments.
Of course. And always check out Luis of Ecuador's channel because he's always got things that he has to talk about that sometimes I can't cover on my channel. So make sure to check him out as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, world. And see you soon.
Take care. Take it easy.
Bye bye.